Boy, after that theme music, it's a little anticlimactic to come in, like the buzz and the white noise, the fluorescent lights, you know. But everyone, welcome to episode 3 of CollabTalk. And we'll kind of introduce ourselves very quickly. I'm Christian Buckley. I'm an Office 365 MVP, dialing in from beautiful, rainy Bellevue, Washington. I'm here with GT Consult.
I'm Naomi Moneypenny. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at ManyWorld, and today it is just about 1 a.m. in Beijing, so I apologize for the orange lighting in my hotel room here, but happy to make this call, and excited to look forward to our conversation today.
Ben?
I'm Marc Anderson.
Well, Naomi, orange is a
sunny
color.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sunny, snowy Boston here.
Keep going.
And
you
I'm
jumped
a
in, Marc.
SharePoint
Keep going.
MVP.
Yeah.
And no one other than the other 3 people on this thing actually care. Go, Ben!
And all right, hi. My name is Benjamin Niaulin. I work at ShareGate, and I'm also SharePoint MVP.
All right. I guess I could have.
Let's get this
slide down below. So it's the 3rd episode. So for those of you that are new to the format here, so here we have the 4 talking heads. We're going to go through 4 different topics and kind of share our thoughts and opinions. We are also monitoring in the panels over on that side of your screen or wherever you've placed them in Adobe Connect here. But we are following along the conversation. If there are questions, we'll try and get to those as well throughout the session. We're going to have a couple poll questions pop up, and then we have the slides down below to kind of guide you through the conversation. And of course, at any time, if you want to reach out to one of us individually, please do so. All right, so we're sponsored by our companies, which we just kind of went through and discussed. Here's what we're going to cover today. So InfoPath, is it undead? Marc is going to spearhead that. Is it undead, Marc?
Well,
I don't think he's paying attention. Are you reading something?
All right,
Are you doing something else?
Oh, is it my turn? All right, well, why don't we get this ball rolling and really talk about something important, right? So, InfoPath, is it undead? Well, it was never dead, in my opinion. It was on life support for a very long time. It has an illness that may or may not cause its demise by the year 2023. So,
Marc,
InfoPath is actually...
There was a funeral procession at the SharePoint conference last year.
And InfoPath kept saying, I'm not dead yet. I'm not dead. I'm feeling much better. And in fact, it feels so much better that Microsoft has said that it will be available and functional in SharePoint 2016. So that gives it a good some number of time, the years and things to keep making things useful for people who are needing to make forms. So it's not dead. It's still a good tool set. It's just not a tool set that Microsoft is spending any time developing. So if you like InfoPath as it works, you're in great shape. If you're looking for InfoPath to go somewhere new, you're not going to see anything happen. So who has some thoughts about how that's all going to roll out?
I'm going to hop onto it then quickly, because for a very long time, I mean, ever since we started talking about InfoPath, the form application that we've been using with SharePoint, would be going away, I was already in my sessions and telling people that it's okay. If we think 10 years ago, around SharePoint 2003, if we were worried that SharePoint 2003 would not be supported anymore in 2013, no, we weren't. And you just have to understand what InfoPath is, what its limitations are, what it's good for, what it's not good for. And if it made sense, I still recommended customers to use it. It's not everyone that is able to do forms with customized code in HTML and that. So as long as you understand, for me, how it works and what are the limitations and what you can do and not do with it, then it's fine. And just to specify, the form services is going to be in 2016, but there will not be, from what I understood, InfoPath 2016 as part of the Office client application. So for me, it's more of a, we'll make sure that you can continue using. And this, of course, brings me to one of the tweet that Bill Bear had posted about possibly going from 2010 to 2016, which also makes sense to me. But I don't know. What do you think, Christian?
Well, you know, I think I agree with your point there that I think we get caught up in a lot of the news, like will it die, will it live? It's there, it's supported. Even if something is stated as being deprecated, it's still there and still usable. And so just like any technology, you need to look at it and say, what can it do? What can it do? Can we get value out of this? If Microsoft is continuing to support it, as they do just about everything that they end of life for like a decade beyond that, you know, can we get value out of the tool set in the time frame that it's still going to be around? And I think for InfoPath, with most folks that have made those investments, the answer is yeah, keep using it. If it's providing value, keep using it.
John has an interesting comment down in the chat window. He said that when his boss installed the Office 2016 preview, it actually uninstalled InfoPath, and I just went and looked, and that happened to me too. I didn't even know it. So if you're using the click-to-run version of Office, which comes from Office 365, it actually may uninstall InfoPath, but that doesn't mean your license isn't valid anymore if you own one. You can always reinstall it. So that's not, and that makes sense, that's not a good sort of yes, it's still alive when it disappears, but you know, the support will be there for it.
You think that would be one of the?
I think it makes sense.
That would be to give you the option. Do you want to uninstall that?
Right.
I'd rather have not keep everything. And I think it makes sense when we're looking at it, especially if this is mostly for the migration scenario, right? If you're going from 2013 or you're going from 2010 straight to 2016, if ever that's going to be possible, that's still we're not 100% sure. That's still rumor at this point. But it's good. I think I see it more as you can go to 2016 and still have those InfoPath forms working. However, you probably won't be working with them afterwards. And I see Azure potentially filling this hole in the future. But hey, Naomi, what do you think? Welcome back.
Thank you. I was wondering if you guys had already talked about, you know, the other solutions that they had proposed at SharePoint conference in terms of, you know, doing more applications in terms of access. So, you know, thinking about what we have in terms of InfoPath Designer, obviously there are a lot of other third parties out there, but, you know, I've seen more and more people actually are going towards using Access and sort of using that as kind of a business tool to create these kind of forms. So I think it's very interesting, right, with Microsoft changing their minds a little bit here and sort of suspending the fossil development too, which was the proclaimed, you know, thing that was going to happen. So I wondered, you know, have you people seen also, you know, access forms increasing inside of organizations too?
No, you know, frankly, I see people doing things the same way they've always done it, and InfoPath is a big part of that. I think that what we should be, what I like to recommend to people is that you have a suite of tools that are available to you. InfoPath is one of those tools. Something like an in-text forms might be another. Plain old default SharePoint forms is a part of that. You know, I mean, sometimes that's more than adequate for, you know, some large percentage of forms for the sort of day-to-day meat and potatoes forms that people need to put together. So really what you ought to be looking at is what is the suite of options that you have available to you, and pick the best one for any particular job. We're always talking tools first as opposed to solutions first, and I think that's, you know, as technologists we make that mistake a lot. So we shouldn't care if InfoPath has a long lifespan. What we should care about is what's the best way to solve our particular form problem at the time that we're trying to solve it. InfoPath still will be part of that for quite some time, I think.
And part of that, to Naomi, kind of answer your question about access services, that's one of those things that was very excited about back in the 2010 days, you know, when there was talk about it. Then it kind of went, you know, hibernated, disappeared from all of the dialogue. I think Microsoft kind of shelved it for a while. There was probably still a team working on something, but no one cared, and then suddenly they're back out and out and presenting. There are some limitations about access services. I mean, like anything, there are limitations with any of these technologies, and certainly with InfoPath, but specifically around security and how you have those services deployed. So things that you need to look at. I'm interested to see what happens at Ignite next month, in May, I should say, it was expand on that story, find out more about what's happening with access services. And maybe it'll be more of an answer to this question.
So what do you guys think if, from an Office 365 perspective, so if I was a user right now and all I have, I've, gone into the cloud and all I'm using is Office 365, what tool would you suggest people to train up their users to be able to build forms on? Mark, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is that you usually have a very small group of people who are building forms as opposed to consuming forms, right? Where there are many people filling out those expense reports, but usually only one or two people building them. So some of the applications that are available out there, or apps, I hate to use that short term, but they're apps. I know Formatus has one, Nintex has one. There are a couple other people coming out with things. There are also some open source things. There's Form 7 that Marc Rackley works on. I do a lot with just jQuery and CSS, moving stuff around on the default forms. So there are lots of different ways you can attack this. And I think a big part of it is, what's the skill set and what are the problems that you're trying to, what skill set do you have and what problems are you trying to solve? If you're trying to replicate paper forms, which I think is where InfoPath has really been very effective, then it's still there, and it's still an option, and you should still consider it.
Benjamin,
I think to hop onto that, Marc, yeah, I was going to hop on and say that Marc had a really good point, and that is to look. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't recommend one or. No, I wouldn't recommend necessarily one right now and say, use this one, use Nintex Forms, or use, I would probably be just looking at who is going to be using it and what are they going to be using it for. A customer of ours is a construction company. Everybody's on the field, and they're going to be using mobile devices that need to be able to fill out forms that are part of a process. So, of course, we needed the person to be able to create that process using workflows, and then we needed a form that was mobile-friendly and easy to create. So for that customer, of course, a particular product made more sense to use in conjunction than another one that may just wanted a form to look nice and branded and easier to use a little bit, and for that, we just did some JavaScript jQuery override. It will always depend for me on who the customer is actually. Is he a person that can open up HTML, or is it a person that wants to click buttons that are in front of him, like InfoPath kind of was? And then what are they doing with the form? And I mean, Mike Fitzmaurice is always spearheading this, that forms is often part of the workflow. He goes all the way to say that it's always part of a workflow, but for me, it has been sometimes just about branding a form. What do you think, Christian?
No, I think so I agree with Mike that I think my experience is it's always part of a workflow. There's some other action that is enabled by completion of that or not. But hey, we're a Nintex shop, so we're very I think aligned with some of the ideas that Mike puts out there, and the customers that we're talking to, that's what they're interested in. Hey guys, we've been chatting about this for a quarter of an hour. Any other final thoughts before we move on to the next topic? No. Okay.
I wish we had something that was undead, because that's sort of exciting and spooky, but we don't really.
We do have a poll question though. I think. Lyman, are we ready? All right.
I see it.
So if you want to take a second just to answer this question, how big of an impact is InfoPath having on your business? And we'll just look at the stats here as they come in. So moderate. So people are using that.
We're quickly tabulating thousands of results.
Thousands.
I'm very excited for our next question today.
All right. So you can see the data right there. Hopefully everybody can see that. So we're at about 47% of moderate impact, 14% huge. So most organizations are using this, so they are concerned about what's happening. It's an important topic. And I mean, honestly, I think that there's a lot that can be written by those in the community, those with certainly the MVP community, to, I think, kind of restate what we've said here is that, if you're getting value out of that, Microsoft is continuing to support what is there today, continue using it, but that there are increasingly options that are out there. There's no one that just dominates the space. There's not been a single vendor that's come in and said, with the solution, but there are multiple options that are out there. All right, with that, we're going to jump over to topic number 2. So what are the next-gen portals and the consumption of SharePoint versus SharePoint the platform? And this was, sorry, still fighting this cold flu thing. But this was the topic that we kind of went back and forth on adding last month. It's the idea of next-gen portals are these things which you can go and consume the experience end-to-end. These are things which that Microsoft saw that were common solutions that organizations were going and either asking about or building themselves or turning to the ISV and partner community to build out these solutions. So the first next-gen portal officially was the video portal service. So the ability to go in and host and tag and manage all of your content and make that consumable internally or externally through that service as this end-to-end experience. So we keep hearing that we're going to see more of these next-gen portal experiences, and it really kind of comes down to, and I would say I'll open this up to the panel here, but when I think about this is like what has made SharePoint so popular and so so fast growing and continued success has been that it has this kind of a Swiss Army knife element that you can build it to be whatever you want it to be, versus Office 365, software as a service, and the next-gen portals are you're consuming these services. And besides playing with hats, Ben, any thoughts on that, the difference between consuming directly versus building what you want it to be?
To be honest with you, it is probably the thing that has got me the most excited about for 2015, for Office 365, from SharePoint in general. It's really sparked something back into SharePoint for me. Is for a long time, for as long as I can remember, we've always been saying SharePoint is the greatest thing. You have it, and you can build what you want with it. And frankly, after a couple of years and long journeys and backs and forth, a lot of us, me especially, have been sometimes tired of saying, all right, well, let's start back from scratch and let's build another thing that we, possibly already built but couldn't reuse. So I'm very happy to see this way of consuming and not having to tell my customers, like, now you've got SharePoint, but now you've got to go build it yourself. You've got to, and not everyone has all of these capabilities or know-how to know how to do video, to transcode them in all formats, to play on all the video devices, on creating channels, creating portals. And I'm just using the video portal as an example because it's the one that we have experience with today. Of course, we've seen some of the other ones, and it's great to be able to see that consumption and start using and benefiting from something like Office 365, whether you're on premises, hybrid, or in the cloud, and you're using both, or whatever the case. I'm really, really extremely excited about. What do you think, Marc?
Well, I have two thoughts. One is, we're talking about consuming SharePoint as a source, as a data source, or as a platform. I think the other part of this is that it's really a consumerization of some of the things that we have been building on top of SharePoint for years, right? So maybe we've built a video portal, or maybe we've built an intranet. So these next-gen portals are going to be the consumerization of those ideas. So for companies who don't have big development staffs and don't really care specifically about, what the things look like or exactly how they function, these next-gen portals may be great solutions for them. For other companies that feel that they have to have stuff that's really customized, they may not. So everybody should look at these things as stack them up against the requirements they actually have. Requirements, 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 right? The other piece of it is that, like the video portal, and that's the one we keep picking on because that's the one we know we carefully can talk about without getting in trouble, is that some of these are going to roll out and they're not going to have a lot to them. They're going to work, but they're going to be that minimum viable product. So we can get very excited about where it's going to go, but sometimes that's hard for people to do. So there's a big splash. The video portal came out and everyone was talking about it for about 2 weeks, and then there's sort of a silence about it now, because I think a lot of people took a look at it and now they want to see what's going to happen next. How is it going to address some of the administration issues, et cetera, et cetera. So as these things progress, they're going to get better and better and better based on user feedback, which is, I think, that part's very exciting. That's a listening that Microsoft has not been good at doing before. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the next couple rollouts of that portal and the next ones that are going to come along. Naomi, I'm sure you have something to add to this.
I think it was really interesting in the blog that Julia White wrote just at the beginning of last month in terms of looking at the evolution of SharePoint. And she definitely mentioned in there, some next generation experiences around knowledge management, for example. And I think what's really interesting with these kind of next generation portals and these experiences that Microsoft is building, a lot of it is centered around getting value very quickly out of SharePoint. And so having these point solutions where you can say, hey, SharePoint does this, right? I think one of the issues we've had in the past, and sort of echoing back what Ben said earlier in terms of SharePoint as this platform and it can do all of these different things, but getting to value was sometimes very difficult. So I think positioning some of these solutions, so Office 365 video, as we mentioned, you get the best of the cloud as well as being able to do things on premises. You get to do things that were really hard for maybe medium-sized and even some larger organizations in terms of being able to stream, vast amounts of videos over a content delivery network in many geographies and, worrying about the bandwidth and all the infrastructure requirements for that. So you get to use the cloud very quickly, but you also get the benefits of what you want to do on-prem. And I think some of these next experiences that we're going to see, so like the knowledge management type of experience, we're going to see the value very quickly from those experiences. And that's going to be the key to how we position SharePoint, I think, as the future platform. If we're thinking about, just a platform inside of our business, what we were doing before was really justifying the investment of buying the software and having the infrastructure and all the resources to support it. But the big issue now is if we're turning to this consumption type of model, is we're consuming these things out in the cloud, but we're saying, hey, how do I get the value out of the investment very, very quickly? So it's not just how we, perceive that 3-year cadence or the change cycle of what we're installing as a platform, but it's also the time to value is much more accelerated. So Christian, some thoughts on that too?
Well, I do have a thought. I do want to do something. If Lyman, if you want to drop in the next poll question, and we'll get that going while people are kind of answering the question. But actually, there was a comment that John made, which I think is a great point. Is that he said something to the effect of people within organizations that are using Office 365 may not even realize that they have SharePoint as part of the solution. But I think there's kind of on the point of these next-gen portals, in my mind, that's part of what Microsoft is designing for. It's almost like, and I've described it as, and this is kind of my crazy theory, but where the majority of organizations that have moved very quickly to Office 365 have led with hosted Exchange. They're there because that makes sense. But as more and more organizations that have gone there for email are either maintaining SharePoint on-prem or using other competing solutions, at some point executives are the light's going to go off and they're going to say, wait, we also have this SharePoint capability, and there's all of these plug-and-play, ready-to-go, end-to-end, next-gen experiences inside the platform, which are as robust or more robust than what we've built and are maintaining on-prem. And so I feel like there's going to be another WSS moment where people realize I'm already paying for it, I have it, let's start using this, and that we're going to just see tremendous growth in the use of SharePoint through Office 365. And a lot of what's going to drive that is going to be these next-gen portal solutions. I don't know if is that a crazy idea, guys?
Yeah.
Do you think it's still going to
No, I want to continue on.
No,
Yeah, that's not...
but that's irrelevant. I mean...
There we go. That's
Go
a
ahead,
good
Ben.
answer. I think it's...
I think more and more... Yeah, I think more and more SharePoint is going to be that thing that we're going to say, oh, I used to do SharePoint, remember that? And it's still going to be there. It's still 100%. There's the on-premises version. There's the ECM that we can use it for and so on. But as it evolves, as mentioned in the chat, there's a lot of customers that I meet, and they have no idea what is SharePoint. They just have OneDrive for Business, which they consider files management, whatever it is. It's ambiguous, and as some of you know, that's been my fight for a couple of blog posts these days, is to understand what OneDrive for Business is. But it's interesting to see also is more and more people in the new generations coming into work, and even the existing generations at work, we're used to a whole new technology era. I'm used to opening, today I wanted to do something, I looked online if there was an application that already does it for me. And voila, I just subscribe, it has a freemium model, and I can pay if I need pro, or if I need to do this, that. There's always a solution out there these days. There's startup creating things all the time, and then we get to work, and they tell us, well, no, you can't do video. We don't have any video support. But we're looking at our platform, SharePoint. We may be building something on it. And by the time that's done, we have been using YouTube private channels at work. And I've literally seen this numerous times. And it's not, a lot of people will think, oh, that's a small customer. You have 50 users. No. This is thousands of users across Canada, across the US. And the users have already been using things like Dropbox, like Facebook groups, private groups, YouTube channels, Drive, tons of things to do their work, and then IT finds out about it later on. And I think the portals or experiences, which for me, OneDrive for Business is considered almost a portal or an experience rather, and I find it gives them that solution, but within something that we know and use as still in our ecosystem that IT, for example, will still be able to manage. So I'm really excited. I think they're doing a good job, but as Marc says, of course it's new and it needs to mature a little bit. The same thing with the video portal, and that's why I think 2015 is going to be a very exciting year for all of us to explore new things, and really excited about all of this.
Just to share the poll results, and I'm sure everybody can see the results down below, but you can see that I think the majority of people are either looking at it or right now have no plans around it. I think it is interesting that there's also a large percentage, and I think it's just a reality of the audience, but that the large percentage of people that are saying no, and we're staying entirely on-prem for now. But these kinds of next-gen solutions, next-gen portals, may actually be a way, as you start looking at, if you're staying on SharePoint on-prem, looking at how do we move towards the cloud. Let's go look at hybrid solutions where the majority of our platform remains, but some of these next-gen portal solutions may be what helps you make that transition to the cloud to go and take advantage of those additional services, tying it back to, integrating it to some degree with what you have on-prem.
Yeah, just use the piece that you want or need.
Right.
Exactly.
If you think about it, it's really Microsoft trying to add some breadth to the product, to the application itself, that is a beefier idea than what they're hoping people will do with apps. Apps may not be as robust and sort of wide-ranging as some of these next-gen portals, though you could easily see potentially someone coming in and doing a knowledge management app that might compete against the next-gen portal for knowledge management. I think Microsoft would actually love that. They want people on that platform, and they want to make sure that there are as many tools as possible that will help people get their work done on that platform, on Office 365, and address business problems. SharePoint will go away, in my opinion. The name will sort of just be subsumed, and I'm fine with that. but the capabilities will be underneath. You know, that platform kind of layer where we've been working will probably be subsumed over years. This is going to take a long time, but these next-gen portals will get layered on top and will become the things that we interact with on a daily basis.
Right.
It's a great observation. I think it's really, the time to value story, and it's making sure that people are having access to the solutions they need, right? We don't have time to wait and develop anymore. It's just not the speed of business. So I'm conscious, of course, that we're moving on.
Absolutely.
With time, so
We are.
I should move on to the next topic.
And Naomi, kick us off.
So we're thinking about the sneaky update that came into the roadmap, I think probably a couple months ago now. And if you aren't checking out the roadmap on a regular basis, you should do so. It's at roadmap.office.com.
Of course, at the beginning of the topic.
So the
is
news
when-
one that we saw out there,
Alright.
sort of sneaky
We lose
update, was something called
Well,
the About Me, and a new
We can take over for now.
And so
Or
the About Me
yeah, all right.
page
So
is
in a recent
how
update,
drive
in a blog post, they had.
that profile data that's inside of Office 365 for that data, and also importantly making it responsively designed, which I think is a great, it's sort of exciting part that people are actually working on this area and saying, hey, yeah, I want to be able to pull up people's profile data and I need it on any device in any circumstance. The other thing that's really going to be part of the About Me
Naomi?
page is not just understanding
Naomi?
the hierarchical relationship inside your organization. Yeah.
Hey, Naomi, we lost you almost through most of that, right at the beginning. If you could start at the beginning and just talk about what it was. You basically said we had the update that came, and then we lost you. So if you could start from there.
I'm so sorry. And that was really awesome. I totally went through all this. Okay. Okay. So hopefully you can hear me now. But the About Me page is basically looking at the Office 365 profile data. And it's basically going to be redesigned to be easier both for you to consume, but also to add in your details. And one of the big things that's going to be part of the About Me page is having it be responsively designed, so that you can access this profile data on your mobile device or on any kind of server or any of the different devices that you might want to look up people's relationships on. The important thing about the About Me page is it's not going to be just about you and the hierarchical sort of organizational relationships that you have. It's also going to have data about the people that you work with, maybe the 10 most recent colleagues. And I think a lot of this new experience is going to be delivered by Delve. So basically looking at kind of the people who you're working with, who are the teams, who are the folks that you're collaborating with, and that will be part of your About Me experience. The other part of this update, is really thinking about the authoring experience. So along with the About Me page that's going to roll out, we're going to see a new authoring experience that allows us to share stories in our organizations. And we're not quite sure what this looks like yet. It could look like a kind of a board type of experience that we have in Delve, or it could be something as sophisticated as a Sway type of authoring experience. But the idea is to basically build stories, to build conversations inside of the organization, but being able to place in different documents at different times. And so you'll be able to sort of build out a story that somebody needs to look through or could navigate through, maybe like a learning journey, or here's how to get up to speed in, doing governance at our organization, or here's our records information management policy, or those kinds of things. Sort of building stories could be wins about teams. So we're going to see that update come out at the same time as the About Me update. So I think it's very exciting that we'll have responsive design. We're going to have a new type of story capability that we can share inside of organizations that pulls lots of different feeds and content together. But we're also going to have something that allows us to explore relationships around the people that we work with. So Benjamin, I know that you're a big fan of some of the stuff that was going on in terms of Delve and the boards and those kind of experiences. What do you think about the new About Me experience that come out?
So of course there isn't much to know or that we saw, but from what we read in the post and understand, I'm also very excited. But I'm more excited about how it's going to play out. I don't know about how the portal is going to be. Obviously, we've talked about it's a My Profile that is probably a lot richer, and we've always wanted the organization chart that's been there in every version of SharePoint, but not quite, So I'm definitely expecting something along those lines to be much more dynamic and much more 2015, if we can say that. But what's really, really interesting is, we see a shift in our industry, and experts are everywhere in our organization. I have somebody here, in marketing that does a lot of videos and a lot of photography on his own time, and sometimes just helps us around in other things. And I think that the About Me authoring tool that you're talking about, the stories, writing a piece of content, is going to be really valuable. It's not going to be as heavy, in my opinion, and I hope it's not going to be as heavy as writing a blog post, which sounds and feels like a heavy thing to be doing, but rather telling a story and saying, today I worked on this, this is what I learned, this is my takeaways from the conference maybe. And where I feel it's really going to come together is with Office Graph, of course. And when you're going to be using Delve, or you're going to be searching for a particular topic, these stories or the expertise from these About Me's or these people will come up as videos will from the video portal, as files from your emails and your OneDrive, and really coming all together. So really, really excited to see how that goes on. Marc, you had something to say?
We're just mocking you, actually, in the chat.
Well, I know Marc will be happy that there are webhooks coming as part of the new conversation tool, the new authoring tool. So there's definitely going to be some webhooks in there too. So I know from a development perspective, Marc should be happy about that.
I'm happy about everything, Naomi. One of the things that I think is interesting is that you and Ben both said, that Delve will help support this. Though Ben went into the territory that I wanted to be more, hopefully, I don't know. You tell me if I should be clearer about this. It's actually the Office Graph that drives all of this. Delve is an example of an application that can sit on top of the Office Graph. So Delve itself is what it is. The Office Graph will be the underpinnings of a lot of these new applications. I think the About Me thing that you were outlining, the 10 most recent people that we interacted with or something. It's not Delve really, it's the Office Graph. The Office Graph, the same Office Graph that's available to us through an API, and we can actually start building stuff like that ourselves. So Office Graph is the API underneath. Delve is an application that sits on top of it. The About Me pages will undoubtedly get some more content exposed up through the Office Graph. So that's hopefully the cool part that will come out of this. That we'll see, rather than a sort of static, here are my hobbies, my skills, my interests, which we've had in the profile in the past. We'll see a more dynamic, rich, as you mentioned, view of what a person is. It's not just about their history. It's about their activity. So we're going to start to see the behaviors of people as they're sort of meandering through the organization and doing their work, showing up on their About Me page without them having to maintain it. That staticness of the profiles has always, I think, frustrated a lot of people, though they don't know why. They just know that the data is always out of date. We'll probably still have that problem with things like what department you're in, whether you've switched offices or not. But who are you interacting with and what might you know because of that will start to become more clear as the Office Graph content starts to bubble up.
I think when we first saw some of the Delve pieces, when the initial snapshots before it was made available, that the product team and the marketing teams at Microsoft started sharing their images, and everybody remembers the black background, and there was all this cool, dynamic kind of About Me type stuff on there that we haven't seen yet out in any of the preview tenants. And so, I was excited hearing about this, even though we have no information. In my mind, I'm thinking, well, we're now going to start moving into that next layer of, as you say, Marc, within the Office Graph, of being able to go through based on individuals and dig deeper beyond just saying, here's About Me, here's my, here are these people, and filtering at that view, being able to kind of pull those pieces apart and do more investigation based on the activities that are surfaced through the Office Graph. And that's interesting. And I know that's as that's maturing, and we'll see more there. I'm excited to see what happens at Ignite. But the authoring is interesting, just because there are. it's funny, and I was poking fun at Ben about his statement about how hard it is to go and do a blog post. We've got to make it easier.
Well, his are so pretty and nice, and he's got graphics and stuff. The rest of us are just apps.
But that's true. I mean, it's just like there's so many different formats out there. I mean, so ebooks are on the rise, and being able to, instead of forcing somebody to go to a URL, being able to just pop something open and have kind of an interactive, like Sway does with video and content and images, links to other places. It's much more interactive. That's cool as well. And it'd be, you know what? Actually, one other thought. I want to just backtrack on the About Me. I am hoping it's portable as well. As I build out that profile, one of the big complaints, I mean, just think of the various Microsoft properties that we're all members of, and the fact that we're filling out and creating profile information, even if we have our Microsoft ID in all these different places. But if we could do something that's persistent, that goes with us as part of our profile, that adds data back into the Office graph based on outside activities, but being able to take that with us and having some part of that persisting would be interesting. I jumped around a bit.
If Office 365 becomes rampantly successful, as of course everyone in the world hopes it will, that identity might be portable across organizations too. I mean, how does that? And I'm making this up, but how does that Office graph activity start to expose itself outside of our organization? There may be places where that makes sense. Let's see what other vendors I've interacted with. I mean, we're starting to see the boundaries of organizations become more and more permeable anyway, as co-opetition becomes a more common way of working together, as opposed to the sort of command and control way of the 50s. We're seeing a lot of that stuff just disappearing.
Well, that's the idea, though. I mean, so what is made like Yammer so successful, grow so quickly, has been because you're just an email invite away. I am the owner of the group. I am the owner of the external site. The security layer is me to invite it in. So when you're talking about sharing of some of this information, I understand a corporation wants to lock down the communications and things that are there, but there almost needs to be more trust in the individuals to say, I understand that, and here are the policies, yet here are the things that I need to go and do, and make it more flexible so that we can collaborate the way that we need to collaborate. Sorry to interrupt you, Naomi.
All right, I was just echoing Mark's point in terms of, I think we're seeing the free agent economy, right? And we're seeing much more of the work-life balance, because we're seeing people that want to be contractors and work at home more, and we're seeing people who are not part of large companies. And so at least 60% of the workforce in the next 10 years, I think, becomes more flexible and sort of more in terms of they're doing solo practitioner type of work. And so having something whereby you can transport your About Me type page and the activities that you do would be really useful, right, across different organizations as you do more contracting type relationships. And I do think that's much more of the future. And so hopefully we'll see some of those updates as part of the future vision, I think, of Office 365 in terms of the work, when you're doing work, when you're doing life, when you're doing balance of everything, and figuring out, how you're getting your work done. And making part of your profile portable would be a really great idea on that.
Who knew that we'd have so much to say about something that we didn't really have anything to say about?
That's why we have to be careful. It's like, did we hear something and forget about it that we're not supposed to talk about, it's not yet public? I don't think so. I think we're okay with everything that we've not said.
I think we're making up a lot of really interesting ideas. So hopefully somebody at Microsoft is listening and they'll do something with this.
Of course they are. Mark, they're always lurking. They're there.
I know.
You
probably have hundreds, if not thousands of Microsoft employees are undoubtedly watching this even as we speak.
Tens of thousands. Yeah, I know.
They've rented a conference room. They're all in the conference room right now.
Yeah. I just know that Cashman and Bill Barabie's like dang it, Buckley calling us out again, but they're there. Come on. All right, with that, we're going to go to our final topic here, Compliance Center. What do we need to know, Ben, about the new 365 Compliance Center?
Well, the Compliance Center has been shown and advertised to arrive back at SPC 14 in Las Vegas. So we had already seen the Compliance Center. I was very excited, and it's been a year now. They've obviously been working on it. It's probably been a lot of back and forth. It's something very important, and now we feel that it's about to come out, or so we started to see more and more videos, and I'm expecting something hopefully very, very soon. Now, just to go back quickly for those that may have not seen or heard anything about this, the Compliance Center is what it sounds like. There's already a lot of things that we can do for emails, making sure that we can track certain things or look at all of these things. And I put a link up there. It's a YouTube video that talks about OneDrive for Business and the Compliance Center. And in Office 365, it really allows us to make sure we stay compliant, right? And sort of a tool or a way to analyze and look through the information, make sure who's been accessing the files in OneDrive for Business, has things been shared externally, and some of you know that I've even had some experience, because there's external users now in OneDrive for Business that are available, and they are counted as users. So if you used the group everyone somewhere, they automatically get included in there. So there's a lot of things that you want to monitor, and as we're promoting, and I say we, but that's without me, but as what's being promoted is put your files, it doesn't matter where they are, in the Office graph, and Dale's going to take care of that somehow. As people start working in OneDrive for Business a lot, something like the Compliance Center is going to be definitely much more important for Office 365 to be even more successful. I think there's going to be a big push on security this year. Naomi, I know you know quite a bit about the Compliance Center, or I think you do. What do you think?
I think I do too. But yeah, I do think it's been a long time in the works. So like you said, all the way back at SPC 14, there was all these sessions, and we didn't see anything of this capability coming out for a long time. I know in conjunction with this, of course, with the Compliance Center, which is really, centered around the audit, the e-discovery type of settings, being able to see all of these things across your Office 365 environment, as well as, hopefully, in the next version at least, we'll be able to extend that into your on-premises environment also. In conjunction with that, there's been a number of developments on for the legal teams themselves. So, Microsoft IT had built a matter center, so being able to deal with legal matter inside of the organization. And made it sort of a kind of solution. Maybe it's one of these next-gen experiences that we've been talking about. And so in conjunction with the Compliance Center, they've also been running a beta test of this new Matter Center, which is really very exciting, I think, from a legal perspective in terms of here's all these capabilities that you needed, here's a way to be able to grab all the case files, being able to have all of this information streamed to you across all of the parts of Office 365. So I wonder if some of the capabilities that we're seeing from a Compliance Center perspective, which is great for administration and auditing and doing all that kind of stuff, if those same capabilities are actually going to go to next-gen solutions, but also be able to make it easier for people to do legal discovery. So one of the big issues we have with compliance is if something is found, they're doing an IT audit, or there's some other, Sarbanes-Oxley compliance, or something is called into question. Just the cost of having to do that e-discovery becomes really, really expensive. So seeing that, there are solutions being built for the legal teams themselves also makes me optimistic that if a breach or something is found, or not even a breach, or a non-compliance event is found, that you'll be able to handle it in a much faster way and actually in a much more economical way, which I think is a great selling point for Office 365, basically compared to a lot of the other web vendors that were out there who don't have these kinds of capabilities. Christian, any thoughts?
I was just going to say we've got one last poll that we wanted to add in and ask that question, whether people are, obviously, if you're over in Office 365, if you're using the Compliance Center. One thing I would point out that you need to think about, just realizing how a lot of organizations run their permissions. but how important it is to set up and manage permissions via roles. So a lot of the controls that you have within the Compliance Center are based on the roles. So it's important that you think about that, go in and clean up the exceptions and not let exception-based permissions drive how you manage permissions within your org. And if we can drag the poll over.
I think so many companies do a lot of IT auditing, and they do it in-house, right, which is a great way so that you find the problems before any external auditors do. And so I think that the Compliance Center will help with that a lot. I think it will help, there's basic permissionings and figuring out what people as their different roles should have, but how do I make sure that something isn't being triggered in an IT audit that I really need to be able to deal with. So I think that's a big cost for a lot of organizations right now. And that's part of, an OpEx cost that's really hard to calculate. So.
I think it's interesting that we're talking about the Compliance Center right after we talked about this really interesting shifting, sort of freewheeling, loosey-goosey identity management profile kind of thing. And that's really, I keep getting my hands in here, it's sort of that yin and yang, right? We've got IT that's always trying to keep things shut down and permissioned and locked down, and of course they're doing that at somebody's behest. Every organization has a different czar for that sort of thing. And then you've got the other side, which wants to be very open and free and doing the best work in the best way with whomever makes sense. So this Compliance Center, as I understand it, and I don't know as much about it as you do, Naomi, for sure, it will help monitor that. I think that's the way I would rather see people but thinking about this, though, is monitoring as opposed to always just enforcing, because there's often too much enforcement and not enough freedom to work in new and inventive ways.
Enablement.
So hopefully, it should be about enablement. It shouldn't be about command and control. Which we see this yin and yang all the time. It's let's make everything open and free, and now we'll lock it down like this. And you can't do both. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, and every company different. So I think balance, finding that balance for your organizational culture, it could be different from one business unit inside of your company as well as your entire company. So being able to navigate that balance of what kinds of things you need to share and how you calculate the risk associated with those things is always top of mind for people in the sort of governance compliance space, but also how you get funding for your different IT projects from a business unit.
Yeah, you'll often see even inconsistency within one small worker.
Can I talk now?
Now let's all stop talking.
I was just going to say that just looking at the results of the poll, that the majority of people are not using it. I mean, the vast majority of people not using it, not looking at it. I think that also though is just I think reflective of the comments that we're making about that SharePoint Online usage compared to the rest of Office 365 is may not be where it needs to be, and yet. And as organizations are making the shift, they're still doing their robust collaboration activities on-prem and moving to a hybrid model. As more of those activities move up into the cloud, then we're going to see more usage of this. I mean, I could say other things that it's not as robust of capability. There's not as much that you can go and automate around it. I can't. A lot of things like going in and setting up alerts and automating reports and those kinds of things can't really do yet. Some of us are spoiled by third-party solutions that allow us to do these things in a very automated way on-prem that just aren't there online yet. But it is something that I always encourage people as they're making the shift and moving and starting to pick up and use 365 and SharePoint Online to make a comparison between what they're doing today and their governance activities around all of these different categories, and look at what that comparative experience is in the cloud, so that as you're making the transition, you're not dropping key compliance, auditing, security requirements for your environments, and you understand how that transitions across. Because it's not the same today. It's very streamlined in what's out in the cloud, but it's also, I'll say, not yet at parity with what is available on-prem.
Yeah, and I wanted to just add, because I've been, from what I'm seeing a lot is a lot of excitement and a lot of marketing and OneDrive for Business, honestly, is what a lot of companies are going to instead of saying SharePoint or just consuming the OneDrive for Business in the cloud because of unlimited storage, because of the sharing, because of all the things that are a little bit different than OneDrive for Business on premises. And when you have people starting to work like this, I think there was a case study on a Microsoft site or somewhere or other about 3M, which I'm sure, well, I mean, we've talked about it here on IT Unity with Jennifer Mason, and where they had everyone from sales and marketing working from OneDrive for Business. All their files are in OneDrive for Business. They have over 10 terabytes already, and it's growing, 500 gigs or something per day or something really crazy like that. And as people are starting to work, I think even with Marc Cashman, I was talking to him, and he said, he starts writing his blog post in his OneDrive for Business. And as people are creating content and perhaps even sharing, when something happens, you want the person that's going to make that choice to say, yes, we will go Office 365, or yes, we will have people work with OneDrive for Business because of the mobility story, because of all of that. But I still want to be able to say, hey, who had access to this document? This, the executive, the CIO, whoever, we need to know if anybody other than him had access to this document. So the audit, the tracking, all of these need to exist for some people and some organizations, either to feel secure or to be able to make the jump and go there, because I fear, my French is coming back up, but I do fear that in the coming year, there's going to be a lot of just put your files wherever. As some people promote the Office Graph and the Delve and the search and all of this, we may see some loss of control at the same time, and so something like the Compliance Center for me is very, very important.
Yeah, I think we're. Any final comments from Marc or Naomi?
Good for now.
Well, thank you. Well, I think we're at the end of our event here. I think I've got there it is. Mixed nuts, and this is it's not a description of the people that are here on the screen with me. It's but anything else that's popped up here. It's one difficult thing is that we're promoting this event over the last month and select our topics for it. Things change, other announcements come out. Anything else in our last couple minutes, folks, that have come up, announcements, interesting things that we may be covering in future topics here on CollabTalk?
I think the whole external messaging in Yammer has been really exciting to look at. It's been a very hot topic in that space, so the idea of being able to add in people into your home network conversations, but add them in as email addresses. So the ability to have people included in conversations, just those conversations, not the whole group, not the whole network, but just those conversations has been something that's been talked about a lot on the different Yammer networks. And so recently, I think it was just yesterday or the day before, I'm not sure what time it is here, they actually announced that they're going to have some different opt-in options around that. So they're going to do improvements around the user experience to make it sort of more highlighted that you have external parties who can possibly see all of the conversation that's going on. There's also going to be an opt-out. So for home networks, canonical networks in Yammer that want to opt out, they'll have to do it by May 18th. Which is just about a week after Ignite. So people will have some opportunity, hopefully, to see some of the new improvements that are coming and then be able to decide, well, how far do you want to go? Do you want to just not let this capability happen on your network at all? Are you not ready yet to have external contractors be copied in, basically, or, as part of a thread inside of Yammer? Or do you just want to opt out of the capability altogether, which is the May 18th option? So, there's a lot of hot topic on that recently. So. Share with that.
One thing I've noticed recently is, usually in the past when Microsoft had a big conference coming up, we'd go into this very quiet period where they'd stop making any sounds. They would all just disappear. as if someone had turned on the lights in the kitchen in the middle of the night. So
Working.
I've noticed
Working.
working. So they're actually still continuing to engage. That example, what Naomi was just talking about is a great example where there's information coming out of Microsoft actively now, even as we're heading into Ignite, and we know we're going to hear new things. So I wanted to point that out because it's part of that whole shift that Microsoft has made culturally that makes them a hell of a lot more pleasant to work with as an organization, in my opinion. So, I expect we'll hear a bunch of stuff leading up until Ignite, but also we'll have all kinds of things we'll find out about it at Ignite and can talk about in future CollabTalk sessions, of course. So I'm looking forward to that.
And Julia,
And I'll add two other things that we've seen. There was the Yammer export, where verified admins can now export any conversation that the users are having, even in external networks. So I found this to be interesting. Of course, you got to look into that. And read an interesting blog post from John, who's actually here in the chat. Azure talked about logic apps now, and he looks at a way of using Azure to create a workflow with SharePoint Online, which could bring a whole new discussion perhaps at the next one. So another two things to be looking at. Very, very interesting stuff coming.
Yep. I know that we're out of time. Thank you everybody for participating. As you saw on the last slide there, I mean, we could keep the conversation going. Hashtag CollabTalk. We'll have, of course, another Tweet Jam next month, and we're back at the end of April, so we're going to be talking about Ignite. Shocking, I know, but hopefully you can join us, and you can, as always, go to itunity.com/go/CollabTalk and get to the latest event. So and register for the next event. Hopefully you can join us. Thanks everybody for participating, and have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.